Hi, the lesson you've chosen is painting surfaces. And we're going to talk about the painting surfaces that you would use as an artist, not surfaces that you would use as a craftsperson, which they use on glass and on fabric and on wood and on ceramics and everything else. It's a different type of an acrylic paint. We're going to talk about the acrylic paint that you would use as an artist. The first product I want to talk about is a product that's called canvas paper, or in this manufacturer calls it a canvas pad. Now what's interesting about this is a great product to use when you were just practicing techniques. So if you wanted to practice tree trunks or rocks or clouds, whatever you want to do, this is the most cost-efficient product that you're going to find. This particular size is 12 by 16. This comes in a variety of sizes, certainly a lot smaller, and it goes up to an 18 by 24. This retails for around $10 for this tablet of 10 sheets. So you're getting, it's like $1 a sheet, obviously. And it comes in a tablet, and you just simply, when you're ready to pull one out, you just tear that rascal out, and you can see how it's fraying. There's a really good shot. So you can really see that there's some actual canvas texture to this, and it frays just like that. So it's definitely not like a piece of paper. Let me put this down and I can talk about this a little bit more. Well, while I got the cover on this particular manufacturer, and this is something that you may want to watch for, is that, and we'll talk about the priming and the gesso here in a second, but while I've got this, is that you can see on here it's acrylic primed, which means that it has been gessoed and the surface is ready for you to apply paint to. Now we'll talk about that in just a second. I'm going to put this off to the side. Going back to the canvas paper, when you pull this out of the tablet, one side of it has got that gesso or that prime on it. And you'll feel a tooth or the material of the canvas right on there. The back side is very, very smooth, and that's the side you don't want to do. So on a tablet, it's going to be the side that's on the top. But again, this can be cut down into smaller pieces if you'd like to, if you want to just work on smaller sizes. Again, it's already gessoed and it's ready for you to start painting right on to practice techniques. And again, it's a perfect thing for that. If you were actually to do a painting on this, you could actually frame it with this material, just like you would a photograph, something like that. So we'll put that off to the side. Our next product we're going to talk about is called a canvas board or a canvas panel. Now what this is again, this has got canvas material, but it's glued, and there's just a backing on it, but it's actually glued on a piece of pretty firm cardboard. I mean, there is a little bit of flexibility to it, but it's still somewhat firm. This is a good product that you can also, practice on if you want, but this is a good one to use if you want to start to create a painting. And this is the product that I use in all the classes that I travel around teaching classes to. This is exactly what we use. This is an 11 by 14, but again, comes in a variety of sizes, all the way up to an 18 by 24, and certainly a lot smaller. This again is already primed with gesso on it, so that's ready to go and ready to be painted on. So that's the next product up. Our next one is called a canvas, and this is the one that's wrapped around a wooden support or a wooden frame. And this is what typically is used. Fine artists will use this to do paintings on, and these go in those really nice frames that you see in galleries and museums and things. This particular one is a standard grade canvas, and how you can tell is that the canvas itself is secured onto this frame with these staples. And you can see that it's right on the side of that. Now when this goes into a frame, you never see that side. So don't be concerned about the staples there. This side, when you buy it retail-wise, is already primed and gessoed, usually with 2 or 3 coats. It depends on the manufacturer. The back of it is still raw canvas. Okay, so it's easy to tell what side you should be painting on. So this is just a general standard canvas with the wooden frame. The next step up, it's the same product, same material. What makes this different is you can see on the sides there are no staples. This is called a gallery wrap. And what happens, again, it's the same canvas material, but what they do, instead of just bringing it over and to the edge and stapling it, they actually will wrap it all the way around the back of the frame. And then it's secured by staples here. And this is called the gallery wrap, which actually goes around the wooden frame and is stapled on the back. So you can tell on the sides that it's nice, clear surface. And what this is designed for is that as you're doing your painting on the front, you can actually bring your painting over around the side. So as you hang this, it actually looks kind of three-dimensional, and you don't necessarily have to put this in a frame, although you can. So, for example, if I had a mountain scene here, that mountain scene would actually get painted right around the corner, so you would see some of the scene on the sides. I don't know if you want to do top and bottom, but certainly on the sides. And this, again, would be mounted right to the wall, and you would actually see the colors and the shapes a little bit of what this is. So your painting would actually carry around a little bit. This is a little bit more expensive because there's a little bit more canvas material to it stapled on the back. So it's basically the same product, it's just wrapped a little different. Now let's talk about when you get a canvas like this, you'll notice that in the corners, and this is true in every single corner, that there is slots that are cut out right in the corner. And again, it's true here, there, and on there. And there's two of them on each piece of the wood. And that's exactly what this is for. And every canvas will come with this. And what this is inside this little bag are like wooden wedges. Let me pull one out so you can see what this looks like. And what this is designed for is that when this canvas first gets manufactured and this gets all wrapped and stapled in, this canvas is pretty tight. But over time, it'll start to loosen up. So these wooden wedges are designed that they actually would go right into the corner, and you would hammer those in, and that would make this canvas become tighter because you're stretching the wooden frame. And you would just simply put those in where you needed those to get that to get tighter. Now what happens is that, again, this is called a bounce. So if you've ever heard an artist talk about a bounce, that's what it is. That's how much of a give that this has in the center of this. I don't necessarily like to use those wooden wedges because it's a process. You got to put them in the corners, and sometimes in one corner you may have to put both of them. In this corner you don't put any. Maybe in this corner you need one, but it's on this side. It's a little bit of a process, and it's all in an effort to make this tighter for you to paint on. What I have found that's much easier is I get those wooden wedges and just throw those away. Instead, what I do, remember we talked about that the front side that you're going to paint on is already primed with an acrylic gesso, and so that's ready to go. The back side, however, is still raw canvas. That has not been processed at all. So what I like to do is I get a spray bottle, and if you're going to be painting with acrylics, you're going to have to own one of these. We'll talk about these in other lessons. The very first thing I do is when I get ready to paint and I pull out a canvas is I flip it over to the back, and I very liberally spray water on this. And you got to remember that canvas is actually cotton. And you know what happens? Cotton will shrink. And you can see I got water beading up and running right down there. It's not going to hurt a thing. And what I do is I allow this water to dry, and it doesn't take very long. But what happens is that on this raw side, it actually shrinks that cotton, which will make this tighter automatically. Now you don't want to spray it on the side you're going to work on because that's got that gesso on it, and you're never going to affect the material because there's a coating on there. But you want to do this on the back side. And it's kind of fun sometimes because if you've got time to play with this a little bit as this is drying, before you spray it, you can hit this and it makes, boom, 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 boom. But after you've sprayed water on it and it starts to dry and shrink, you can almost hear it's kind of like a drum tightening up where it'll go boom, 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 boom. And again, all that is in an effort to make this side a little bit tighter. And this right now is much tighter than it was when I first held this up to you. And what's important about the bounce? It affects some artists it's not a big deal. You'll notice it when you're doing certain techniques. So if I was going to do a technique where I'm putting in some trees, some leaf trees in the background, you may find that it kind of gives, kind of like a trampoline does when you're on it. There's that give to it, and you'll feel that. And sometimes a lot of artists like that to be pretty taut, so there's not. So when they hit it, it seems to be pretty firm. I kind of like that myself. So again, The wooden wedges are going to come with it in a little bag, and that's what those are for. And again, I don't use them personally. Many people do. I find it's much easier just to squirt it with water and you get the same result. Now we've talked about that gesso, and let me talk about that for just a few minutes, because I get that question quite a bit, is that people will hear about the product, but they're not quite sure what it's used for. And all this is it's a paint. It's white, and it's a little bit thinner than what your acrylics that you'll actually be painting with are. But it's designed as a primer. So just like if you were building a new wall in your home or adding on a room and you had walls that you had to paint, typically what you do is you're going to put primer on that first, which prepares the surface of the wall, so then it will accept the paint. And that's exactly in art, the same thing. So gesso is actually a primer. Now, if you've seen our television show, you know that I actually paint with gesso and use that as a white because it's a little bit thinner. And under the lights and everything, it just kind of keeps the paint a little bit thinner, and it's easier to blend other colors with. So those are your choices basically for art. Again, you have the canvas paper or canvas pad, depending on the manufacturer. They could call it, what they want. It's not really a paper; it's thicker than that, and it has that what we call a tooth. It's that texture that's on canvas. And it's really important for artists to have that because, again, that helps to pull that paint off the brush. It's going to be the less expensive and a great one to kind of get started to practice on. Your next step up is going to be that canvas panel or canvas board. That's that piece of rigid cardboard that's got the canvas kind of wrapped and glued around it. Those are really nice to paint on when you want to start to develop a painting. So you want to start, okay, I know how to do trees, I can do rocks. Now I want to start doing a painting that's got those in it. The nice thing about not so much the canvas paper, but the canvases and the canvas board is that if you do a painting that you get all done and you say like, well, I'm not really happy with it, instead of throwing it away, just get a can, and I do this every 2 weeks with all the paintings that I do for my classes. I use the canvas board like I showed you before, and there are paintings on that. What I do is I get regular flat house paint that you just go to the hardware store or your home improvement store and buy a gallon of that, or if you got it laying around the house. And I just paint right over top of the painting just to cover it up. And then you can apply in more acrylic paints and you can just do another whole painting on there. So anytime you have a canvas that you're not really happy with the painting, just get some regular house paint, paint right over top of it, let that dry, and you're ready to go back to start another painting. One of the questions I get asked all the time is when it gets time to put a painting in a frame, do I need to have the glass in? With watercolor artists, they always put glass on theirs. With oil artists, they never do. And with acrylic, you have the choice. Like most things with acrylic, it's pretty flexible and pretty versatile. Depending on what kind of a frame you get, if you get a frame, this is an 11 by 14 canvas panel, so obviously you can get a standard frame that would have glass in it that you might put a photograph in. But you can put this in there. What I would suggest if you're going to use that kind of a frame and if you have a canvas panel is that typically those would come with a piece of glass, and then there's a piece of cardboard in there which is the backer, which really kind of helps to sandwich your photograph inside the frame and the glass. You can actually discard that piece of cardboard because this canvas panel is thick enough that it takes up that space. But with the glass, you don't have to use glass with an acrylic painting. It's really up to you. I guess my answer that I would tell folks is that if you have other paintings or photographs that are in your house and you have glass in those, then go ahead and just put this under glass. Again, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect the painting at all. And maybe that might be the safer way to go, because if you don't use the glass, then you've got a piece of glass laying around that could get broken and cause some injury or something like that. But it's just, again, a piece of glass you're going to have to discard. So again, it's your choice if you want to use the glass or not, but you don't have to. So I hope that answers your question, because I know it comes up all the time. So again, those are your three products. I hope that helped you a lot to decide on what you need. If you have any other questions or if there's other subjects, go back to our lesson link and you can see other subjects that'll help you along. Thanks so much.